Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flicks Christmas Countdown. Matt Atchity, Alonso Duralde. We're here every day until Christmas talking about 25 of my favorite holiday movies, many of them featured in my book, Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas, now available from Amazon. Definitely one that's in there is a 1984 film that has become a beloved, much quoted, it's a musical now and everything, contemporary classic, A Christmas Story.
How about a nice football?
Football? What's a football? With unconscious will, my voice squeaked out.
Football. Okay, get him out of here.
A football? Oh, no!
Okay,
What was I
Jerry.
doing? Wake up, stupid! Wake up! No!
No, I want an officer Red Ryder carbonation 200 millimeter rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
That's right. This is one of those movies that, not to the extent of It's a Wonderful Life, but it came out, it did okay, the reviews were okay, and then it really kind of took home video and TV to sort of build up steam for this thing to kind of make it the behemoth that it has become.
Yeah, there's probably an interesting study to be done on how networks like TNT and USA gave certain movies a whole second life, and this is one of them, right?
Well, and I think they were kind of borrowing from the It's a Wonderful Life playbook, because, in the 70s when It's a Wonderful Life was in public domain, it was always on television. I mean, as a kid, right. I remember literally changing channels between screenings of it, and it would be at different points in the movie. And so the idea of, Turner being, hey, TNT, let's air this thing for 24 hours straight, right. That sort of gave it that same kind of oomph.
Well, but it didn't start out that way, though, right? Because I remember being young enough that it's like, oh, we'll watch it, they'll show it every night of the week,
right?
It'll be 3 nights in a row for Christmas. Watch A Christmas Story as part of the rest of their lineup, and I guess people responded to it enough that they just ended up rerunning. And one of the fun things about that movie is so episodic in the way it's presented in the stories that Ralphie goes through.
You can kind of hop in.
You can kind of come in and out at any point because it's all these little vignettes, which is owes a lot to Gene Shepard's storytelling.
Absolutely, yes.
And the narration that he provides.
Indeed.
That movie's terrific, and it totally holds up for the most part.
And we wouldn't have the Wonder Years without it, I don't think.
Yeah, I think
at
you're
least
right.
Not in the same way.
The other interesting thing about that movie, and kind of shows how much of a time it is that there's that scene in the mall, the department store, where you're seeing the Wizard of Oz and Mickey Mouse like running around together in costume, and I don't think you could get away with that now.
Probably not. I mean, certainly not in real life even. But this is an MGM movie, so the Wizard of Oz stuff they had wrapped up, and I guess Disney wasn't paying attention or was like, sure, whatever. It's the early '80s. We haven't become completely monstrous yet. Peter Billingsley, I remember at the time that this was made, was kind of the kid actor of the moment.
Right.
Like he was in those Nestle Quick ads.
Messy Marvin.
Messy Marvin, yes. And you would see him all over the place.
Look it up, kids. Messy Marvin.
I'm probably living on YouTube still. But then you have like Darren McGavin and the great, why am I blanking on her name? Of course, the minute I'm talking about her, who plays the mother.
Maybe it's in the book.
Maybe it's in the book.
Darren McGavin is terrific in this movie.
He's so funny in this.
I think that, he
Melinda
plays...
Dillon. Oh my God, Melinda Dillon.
Right,
yeah.
she's great. But Darren McGavin is so much fun in this movie as this somewhat remote, like, dad to be afraid of, and you definitely get the sense of, there's a warmth from Melinda Dillon and Ralphie's mother, and his brother is weird, right? But his father is this remote figure, and it's this really interesting kind of perception of, like the guy that you're kind of afraid of. And so by the end of the movie, when, you realize that the dad that the old man, like he never even almost gets a name, right? Like the old man has gone and gotten the gift that Ralphie wanted that nobody else wanted to give him.
Yeah.
It's this really kind of neat moment. It's like, okay, there it is.
No, I mean, it's when he does that, the way the mother sort of does the end run, where like when Ralphie gets into the big fight and she sort of shapes it away. Like she should be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Like she is totally finessing this awful thing in a way that makes it sound much more innocuous than it is. Like that's a real gift. what's great about this movie is that it is so forthrightly from the kid's POV.
Yeah.
And it's what a kid's Christmas is about, which is like that thing that I want. And yeah, this other stuff happens and it's cool and, whatever else, but it's about that. I gotta get that toy.
Right.
I gotta get that thing that I really, really want. And that's what the whole year is leading up to.
That yearning and desperation and hope and, the idea of like, when he writes the theme and all of the things that he's got to do to kind of make his sale and, when Ralphie's saying like, yeah, somebody saw bandits. Good job, kid. I mean, and that's what's funny is my kid does that. He'll do stuff like that. He'll like think he's being subtle. And he's like, I've been thinking about that. I'm like, kid,
I saw this study that video games is supposed to make you better
exactly.
at school. Yeah, and there's so much about this movie that has become part of the parlance, not just about Christmas, but like, you shoot your eye out, kid, and the whole thing about the, getting your tongue stuck to a pole or whatever else. But like even
my brother did that.
No kidding.
Yeah, on a dare because we'd watch the movie.
Okay, so it's the movie's
and
fault.
It worked.
Whenever I'm in a situation where I'm being stealth marketed to and I realize it, I immediately go, drink more Ovaltine. Like that's the shorthand now for that kind of thing.
Every time I see a box, I'm like, oh, Fragile, it must be Italian.
Yeah.
Do that all the time.
Fragile has become Fragile forever.
And, a few years back, 10 years ago or so, I got my dad the leg lamp for Christmas, much to my mother's chagrin.
Yeah, this movie has become such a phenomenon that, you can buy the leg lamp, you can buy ornaments of the leg lamp, you can visit the house where the exteriors were shot. I think all the interiors were done at a studio in Canada. But the exterior house, you can visit it. I think some people even get to spend Christmas Eve night there. Interesting to point out, Bob Clark made this movie with the chits that he gathered from having made Porky's.
Wow.
Porky's was such a hit that he was like, he got to make this movie with almost no sort of studio interference. And a lot of times a director makes a hit and then they get to make their dream project and it's terrible. Or at least they needed somebody kind of telling him no. But this is one of those rare examples where he took his sort of relative amount of creative freedom and really came up with something unique.
Every time I look up Bob Clark, and I go and realize, oh, right, he's done Porky's. But until you said that, now I may forever think, and I'm going to ruin this for everybody, I may forever think that Ralphie grows up to be the horny high school kid, which obviously he does, right?
Well,
and maybe the long-term
by the
sequel.
60s, Ralphie's already in his 20s, though. But I hear you. I get where that's going.
Right, because nobody was horny in the 50s.
I'm just saying the dates don't quite match up. Of course, I have to mention the fact that Bob Clark, this is his second major Christmas movie. He also directed 1974's legendary horror film Black Christmas, which got to the sort of holiday-based slasher movie years before John Carpenter and Halloween. So, and I think technically counts as pretty much sort of the first Christmas horror movie. So, fascinating that these are the two holiday movies that he has in his quiver. But yeah, this is just a really kind of just a charming film, and I've heard people describe it as cynical, which I think is not quite accurate.
Really?
Yeah, to me it just feels too first person to be cynical. Like the movie, I don't think the movie is sort of imposing a structure of what Christmas is supposed to be or what anything is supposed to be. It's more like this specific guy. It's Gene Shepard talking about his own life and his own
Right. I mean, is there a little bit of a cynicism in the way he talks about things? Maybe, but I think it's more kind of at worst, like maybe a wry kind of acknowledgement of, say, the hypocrisy that, when his mom says, oh, who taught you that language? Right. And he's like, well, and when we earlier had gotten the moment of, my father worked in, my father worked in swearing the way other artists worked in oils, right? And fighting the dreaded
the furnace,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, this movie's so much fun. I think you're hard pressed to find the cynicism.
I think what some people call cynicism is really just sort of kind of kid pragmatism.
Yeah.
And I love the ending. I mean, yes, you may find the joke about the waiters a bit problematic at this point, but I think that the best memories of any family sometimes are the worst things that happen just
Right.
because you get a story out of it later. All right, we're here every day till Christmas. Thank you for watching. Merry Christmas.